Commander, there's someone here asking for the Empress. The words drifted across the silent throne chamber, just as the twin sons of Arctyra disappeared beneath the horizon. Inside the celestial court, the air felt heavy enough to crush breathing itself. Towering pillars of dark marble stretched toward a domed ceiling painted with the victories of 1,000 conquered worlds. Royal sentinels lined the hall in perfect formation, their silver spears glowing faintly beneath streams of blue fire suspended in the air. Every movement inside the palace followed ancient tradition. Every word carried consequence. And the young man standing near the entrance clearly did not belong there. His boots were stained with engine oil and desert dust. A weather-worn satchel hung from one shoulder, and exhaustion shadowed his face like he hadn't truly slept in weeks. His name was Adrian Cross, 26 years old, cargo pilot, Outer Rim citizen, a nobody. Beside him stood an elderly woman wrapped in a faded gray cloak. Her back was slightly bent with age. Her silver hair fell loose around tired eyes that seemed overwhelmed by the sheer size of the chamber surrounding her. No one looking at her would have noticed anything remarkable. That was the point. At the far end of the hall sat Empress Seraphine of the Solari Ascendancy, the woman who ruled over 800 inhabited systems. Her white robes flowed across the obsidian throne like liquid moonlight, and the crown resting upon her head shimmered with fragments of crystallized stars. Calm, untouchable, divine, or at least that was how history described her. The herald struck the floor once with his staff. State your purpose. Adrian swallowed hard. My name is Adrian Cross. 3 months ago, my cargo vessel suffered engine failure near the dead zone surrounding Orpheus Station. The court listened silently. I found someone there. He glanced beside him. The old woman lowered her eyes. At first I thought she was just another survivor hiding in the ruins. Adrian's voice tightened slightly. But then I found the records. Murmurs spread softly through the nobles. The Empress remained motionless. Adrian slowly reached into his satchel and removed a small metallic cube no larger than his palm. I believe this belongs to the Imperial Archive. The chamber darkened as the cube activated. A holographic projection burst into the air above the floor. Old security footage, medical records, military authorizations, and one classified file stamped with the highest royal seal imaginable. Subject: Project Veil. Status: successful memory purge complete. The atmosphere inside the hall shifted instantly. Several ministers went pale. The Empress's expression hardened for the first time. Adrian looked around nervously. I didn't understand any of it at first, he admitted, until I saw her name. The hologram rotated. Identity before purge. Empress Seraphine Aurelia Solari. The chamber exploded into chaos. That's fabricated. Impossible. The Empress is standing right there. Adrian turned slowly toward the throne, so I kept digging. The old woman beside him trembled faintly. 20 years ago, there was an assassination attempt during the Civil War. Official history says the Empress survived. He paused, but she didn't. Dead silence. The royal guards tightened their grip on their weapons. Adrian's voice dropped lower. The woman sitting on that throne isn't the original Seraphine. Every eye in the chamber snapped toward the throne. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across the nobles' faces. The Empress rose slowly, gracefully, dangerously calm. You should stop talking, she said softly. But Adrian continued. The real Empress suffered catastrophic memory damage after the attack. The High Council erased her identity and replaced her with a genetically altered military regent designed to stabilize the empire. He looked toward the elderly woman standing beside him, and they abandoned the original ruler on a classified station, so no one would ever know. The old woman lifted trembling eyes toward the throne. Recognition passed between the two women instantly. Not political recognition. Personal. Painful. Like looking into a mirror that had stolen your life. The court stood frozen. One Empress dressed in royal white. The other wrapped in a worn gray cloak. The woman on the throne, descended the steps slowly. No guards moved. No one dared interrupt. When she finally stopped before the old woman, her voice barely rose above a whisper. "You were supposed to forget everything." The old woman smiled sadly. "I forgot my name," she said quietly, "but I never forgot my daughter." The chamber fell completely silent. Several nobles looked horrified now, because the impossible truth was becoming clear. The ruler they had followed for 2 decades was never the real Empress. She was her replacement, a manufactured sovereign built to preserve stability, while the true ruler vanished into obscurity. Adrian suddenly understood why people had tried to kill him during the journey here. This truth could collapse an empire. The false Empress stared at the elderly woman for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, her expression cracked, not with anger, with grief. "I searched for you," she whispered. The old woman's eyes filled with tears. "You were the child they gave my face to." No one in the throne chamber moved, because suddenly this wasn't about politics anymore. It was about a daughter raised to become someone else, and a mother erased from history itself. Adrian slowly stepped backward toward the shadows near the entrance, but before he could leave, the woman on the throne turned toward him. "You carried the one truth powerful enough to destroy everything we built," she said quietly. The entire court watched him. A simple cargo pilot from the Outer Rim, the man who had accidentally brought the dead Empress home. No one in the throne chamber dared speak. The silence that followed felt unnatural, heavy, like the entire palace itself was holding its breath. Adrian Cross stood near the entrance, heart pounding against his ribs as hundreds of royal eyes shifted between the woman on the throne and the woman standing beneath it. One dressed in white silk and crowned with imperial light, the other wrapped in a faded gray cloak worn thin by 20 years of exile. And somehow they had the same face. Not perfectly. Age and hardship had carved themselves into the older woman's features, while the Empress standing before the court appeared almost untouched by time. But the resemblance was undeniable now. The nobles saw it, the guards saw it, and worst of all, the High Council saw it. Near the right side of the throne chamber, Chancellor Vaylor slowly rose from his seat, ancient, sharp-eyed, dangerous, the oldest surviving member of the Imperial Council. His voice cut through the silence like a blade. "This proceeding ends immediately." 24 royal guards moved at once, spears lowered, weapons charged, not toward Adrian, toward the old woman. Adrian stepped instinctively in front of her. "Wait!" "She is not to speak," the Chancellor snapped. The false Empress turned sharply toward him. "Stand down." Her voice echoed through the chamber with enough force to freeze even the guards mid-step. Vaylor's expression darkened. "Your Majesty," he said carefully, "this situation threatens the stability of the empire itself." "No," the Empress replied quietly. Her silver eyes drifted toward the elderly woman. "The truth threatens you." A ripple of fear crossed several council members immediately. Adrian noticed it, and suddenly pieces began fitting together in his mind. The council had not merely hidden the real Empress. They had built an entirely new government around her disappearance. Wars, treaties, executions. Everything the empire had become over the last 20 years rested on a lie none of them could allow exposed. The old woman looked around the chamber slowly, confusion and sadness filling her tired eyes. "I remember pieces now," she whispered. The room listened. Cold metal walls, doctors' voices arguing. Her breathing trembled. They kept asking if I remember my name. The false Empress stared at her in silence. "And when I couldn't answer," the old woman continued softly, "they abandoned me." Several nobles lowered their eyes. Even among the court, some looked disturbed now, because this was no longer political scandal. It was cruelty, deliberate, calculated cruelty. Chancellor Vaylor suddenly raised his hand. "Seize them." The guards hesitated, not because they disobeyed him, because they didn't know who the real ruler was anymore. And that moment of hesitation changed everything. The false empress stepped forward. "You will do no such thing." Her voice thundered across the chamber. For the first time since Adrian arrived, genuine fury burned behind her calm exterior. Valor narrowed his eyes. "You were created to preserve order," he said coldly. "Do not forget your purpose." The word struck the chamber like a weapon. Created, not born. Created. Adrian saw a shock spread across the faces of younger nobles who had clearly never known the truth. The false empress closed her eyes briefly. Then she spoke the words no one expected. "I remember the laboratory." Dead silence. "I remember being taught how to walk like her, speak like her, smile like her." Her voice grew quieter. "I remember them telling me I was chosen because I had no family." The old woman stared at her, tears filling her eyes. The Empress continued descending the final steps until only inches separated them. "They gave me your memories in fragments," she whispered. "Enough to become you, but never enough to know who I was." Adrian felt chills crawl down his spine. This woman had ruled half the galaxy for 20 years, while never truly knowing whether her own life belonged to her. The old woman slowly raised a trembling hand toward the Empress's face. "You were just a child." For the first time, the Empress looked fragile, not powerful, not immortal, just tired. "So were you," she whispered back. And suddenly Chancellor Valor drew a concealed pulse weapon from beneath his robes. "Enough!" The chamber erupted instantly. Guards shouted. Weapons activated. But Valor wasn't aiming at Adrian or the old woman. He aimed directly at the Empress, because now she had become the real threat. "You were never meant to question the narrative," he hissed. The shot rang out. A flash of blue energy tore through the chamber, and Adrian moved without thinking. He lunged forward just as the blast fired. Pain exploded through his shoulder as the energy round struck him sideways, throwing him hard across the black marble floor. The chamber descended into chaos. Guards tackled the Chancellor. Nobles screamed. Weapons ignited everywhere. But through the ringing in his ears, Adrian heard only one thing: the old woman crying out in horror, because the false Empress had dropped to her knees beside him, holding him. Blood stained her white sleeves as she pressed trembling hands against the wound. "Why would you do that?" she whispered. Adrian winced painfully, trying to laugh through the agony. Guess cargo pilots make terrible decisions. For a second, the Empress smiled. A real smile. Small, broken, human, and somewhere beyond the towering palace walls, beyond the stars themselves, the Empire began to change forever.